What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Sunshine State Sports Rundown. And I know it's only weekdays, but we had to squeeze in a Sunday night episode to go over the college football games as well as the games that happened in the NFL. So let's start with what happened first, which was college football. Starting off with the noon game that we had, which was the Gators going up against Mississippi State. Now, going into it, we did have the Gators winning, and Florida, as we've mentioned, they haven't really been able to reach their peak so far this season. They haven't been playing to their full potential, but Graham Mertz looked on point. The game was a good first half. Florida jumped out to the early lead. That highlight play by, I believe it was Mario Craver, hurdling two Florida defenders, then fumbling and catching his own fumble, was the highlight of the first half. However, Graham Mertz, he looked like Graham Mertz, 19 for 21, 201 yards and three touchdowns and no interceptions. DJ Lagway came in the game late, was 7 for 76 yards. So, Florida, this is what you wanted to see for them to get back on track, dominating an opponent like they did yesterday. So, Florida will now enter a bye week and they'll have a lot of things to fix and a lot of improvements to work on before they have their in state rivalry game versus Central Florida. The Gators' schedule is brutal, but getting a win versus Mississippi State is crucial. Was crucial. Florida State got their first win of the season against the Cal Golden Bears, a winless team versus an undefeated team. It was a sluggish game. I was able to tune into the fourth quarter. Florida State ended up winning 14-9. DJU, another struggle of a game, completing less than 60% of his passes, a buck 170, a touchdown, and an interception. The running game was what they turned to. Six guys got carries in the running room. You gave it to Lawrence Toa, Philly, 17 times. Cam Davis, 7 times. DJ took off with his legs 9 times. And you saw guys like Douglas and Singleton also be incorporated in the running game. Good win from Florida State. Way to get on the win streak. So maybe start a spark of momentum from that game. They'll have SMU next week, which is going to be an exciting game, especially against a new conference foe. If they can beat a really good SMU team, a 3-1 SMU team, and get back on track, that'll be a very optimistic thing, so to speak, for the Florida State Seminoles. Another team in the state of Florida that was that was very impressive, and we think this is the best team in the country, maybe other than Texas. The Miami, Florida, obviously, because you got to specify the Miami, Florida, because I made a tweet yesterday about Miami, and people were asking if it was Miami, Ohio, or Miami, Florida. I thought it was quite obvious. So, to play back at that joke, Miami, Florida, the only real Miami team in one of the greatest major cities in the world, absolutely has been dominant. That was a close first half, but it's a really gritty USF team who is really good. Byron Brown got hurt in the second half, and USF, they were able to sustain drives deep in Miami territory, but they went for it a lot, especially on like deep fourth downs. But it was a 7 point game in the first half. Then once Byron Brown got hurt, Miami was up 3 scores and they just pulled away. And it's a lot like USF. They're able to hang in games. It was a 3 point game going into the fourth quarter versus Alabama, and then you get absolutely throttled 42-16, as well as a 7 point game going into halftime, and you get annihilated by USF 55 Or sorry, rather 50-15. Tongue twister there. So, still positives for USF and the major Power Four teams, all of them winning. UCF on by, I believe was on by. Could be wrong. Yes, they were on by. They will play the Coach Prime Fighting Colorado Buffaloes, which is going to be a fun one. Very much so a hyped game that will be. Gonna see if UCF how much they're gonna be able to run over that defense of uh, Colorado. Now, the very disappointing teams in the state of Florida. Let's start out with FAU losing 48-14 to UConn. Now, UConn is a team that likes to run the ball, and FAU knew that, and their front seven hasn't been terrible besides that Army game where Army ran all over them. This game, they were even worse, letting Nick Evers run all over the front seven of FAU. Jaden Brown, 21 carries for 156. Darrell Robinson, 16 carries for 156. Nick Evers, 18 carries for 78. Cameron Edwards, 7 carries for 30 yards. A complete and 4 touchdowns total on the ground. Complete embarrassment from the Owls, just not being able to stop the run. UConn running all over the Owls front seven. FAU will go into Wagner, and then we'll have a bye week after that. So hopefully they can figure something out in a very winnable game versus Wagner. But I think it's time to make a quarterback change when I look at FAU. Cam Fancher, he doesn't bring you a lot of throwing talent. And if you're not going to utilize him in terms of the run game, which he's like a wildcat quarterback, then there's no point. Give Starks a chance, give the Colorado transfer a chance. So that's my overall opinion on FAU. And I didn't think it was worse losing while you're favored 48-14, but it gets worse. FIU homecoming game loses at home to FCS 1-2 Monmouth 45-42. Disappointing showing from the FIU defense, and it feels like they have a lot of good moments, like for example that blocked punt, but they're not. Or was it a blocked punt? I don't know. It might have been an interception, but they're not able to sustain it. Keon Jenkins in the offense was super solid last game. I just feel like that this isn't an FIU team that is ready yet because you lose to Monmouth, an FCS team. You lose to FAU, a game which I thought, I mean, you would have at least competed, and it was a 3-score, 18-point game, and it should have been more. USF scored in garbage time. Let's go over to football now. The Buccaneers got absolutely throttled by the Denver Broncos. That is something that we weren't expecting. Bo Nix, though, was absolutely excellent. He was running it on his own, throwing it as well. The defense needs to improve, and Baker Mayfield just wasn't his day. Bucks fall to 2-1. The Dolphins also very disappointing. You knew Tua was hurt. It was super bad. You go down 17-3. Mike McDaniel with very questionable play calls, going for it on multiple fourth downs, the 4th and 3 and 4th and 1. Throwing on both of those was surprising. He gets hurt. Tim Boyle wasn't actually that bad. He led the Finns deep down to Seahawks territory, but overall the Seahawks improved to 3-0. Finns will start the season 1-2. The the Jags will play tomorrow versus the Bills, and we'll see. We might sneak in a preview for that game a special preview tomorrow. But I'm just gonna tell you this between me and you. I'm pretty confident that we're going to see an upset in Buffalo. Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are going to be determined to get a win after starting the season winless. So, I think the Jaguars defense, they played really solid. I think they got unlucky in both games. Both games they should have won. Doug Peterson, both games going for it on 4th and 1 in his own territory, not converting on either, ultimately leading them to detrimental losses. So that'll do it for this episode of the Sunshine State Sports Rundown. I am your host, JJ Metz. Thank you all so much for watching today's episode, and we'll see you in the next one.